Hello and welcome. Good evening and welcome everyone to this very special live telephone town hall meeting we have for you tonight. We can see we already have some folks joining us on the line right now. Want to say thank you so much for being here early. We are going to get started in just a few minutes, so please stay right on the line here as we continue connecting to more and more of your neighbors in the 33rd District of Texas. So again, hello and welcome. Good evening to everyone who is joining us here tonight for this hour-long live telephone town hall meeting. Again, thank you all so much for joining us here. We will get started in just a few moments, so please stay on the line with us as we continue connecting to more and more of your neighbors in the 33rd District of Texas. We are inviting you here to join Congressman Mark Veasey for this very special live telephone town hall meeting. This call is an opportunity for residents to ask questions, share their concerns, give feedback, and also receive updates on the latest from Congress. So with that being said, we want to hear from you. If you have any questions now or at any time throughout this call that you would like to bring live, please go ahead and press 0 on the keypad on your phone. Again, press 0 on your phone keypad to submit your question. If you would prefer me, the moderator, to read your question over the air tonight, I certainly don't mind. Just be sure to let your operator know that that is what you would prefer. Of course, we would love to hear your voice, but either way, press 0 to submit your question. Also tonight, we're always trying to expand our email list. So if you would please go ahead and press 7 to provide us with your email, you will be able to receive the latest from Representative Veasey's office. Also, to get more information after tonight's call, please feel free to visit veasey.house.gov. Again, that's veasey.house.gov. And for those of you who are just joining us on the line, want to say hello to you, good evening, and welcome. We are inviting you and thousands of others in the 33rd District of Texas to join Congressman Mark Veasey for this very special telephone town hall meeting. Again, this call is an opportunity for you to ask your questions, share your concerns, and get updates on the latest from Congress. And during this call, we encourage you to press 0 to connect with an operator to submit your question. We would love for you to have you bring your question live after we hear from your congressman. However, if you don't feel comfortable going live, just let your operator know, and I will be more than happy to read your question over the air. So again, either way, still press 0 to submit those. Another reminder here, and I'll be sure to remind everyone a few times throughout tonight's call to press 7 at any time as well if you'd like to provide us with your email to stay in the loop and receive the latest from the representative's office. And also, to get some more information after the call tonight, please feel free to visit veasey.house.gov. So with that, I would like to officially get this call started off tonight by turning it right over to Congressman Mark Veasey, who happily serves the 33rd Congressional District of Texas. Congressman, welcome. Please take it away.
Absolutely. Hi, and buenos dias, everyone. This is Congressman Mark Veasey of the 33rd Congressional District, and I want to thank everybody for joining us for this evening's telephone town hall. And it's hard to believe that the first few months of 2022 has flown by, and we're getting ready to start spring and getting ready for Easter just around the corner, and hopefully some a little bit warmer weather. Maybe not the intense heat that we're used to in the Texas summer, but definitely a little bit warmer. As you may know, my colleagues and I in Congress, alongside the Biden-Harris administration, are working around the clock to tackle major issues we face both here and abroad. And in 2021 of March, Congress and the Biden administration took a definitive step towards combating the pandemic that we've all been living through by getting a relief package signed into law. The sweeping COVID-19 relief package put shots in people's arms. It put people back to work, put money in people's pockets, and put our kids back in school. And if you have kids in school like I do, hallelujah that our kids are back in school. And in November 2021, the bipartisan infrastructure bill was signed into law. And this package is the largest long-term investment in the nation's infrastructure in nearly a century. And it invests $35 billion to infrastructure projects across Texas to repair roads and bridges, to bolster access to broadband, something that we all need now, especially our children, and to secure clean water for our kids, and so much more. And in 2022, we have continued to build on this success to deliver for our constituents across the country. Just in the last few weeks, we passed the bipartisan government funding package to help working families with the cost of living, create American jobs, and support the vulnerable who work hard. I'm very, very proud to announce also that the bipartisan government package also includes over $13 million that I secured directly for North Texas by bolstering transportation, expanding health care, helping veterans, creating jobs, and more for our communities. I am also very proud of the $13 million in direct investments that I was able to secure for our community. But my work for the community has not stopped there. Just in the first few months of 2022, I've led these efforts that will impact North Texas. And I just want to give you an example of a few of those. In January, I was proud to secure $403 million in new funding for the Trinity River project over in Panther Island. This in the bipartisan infrastructure law that was passed. The money that I secured will help bolster flood protection and growth opportunities in the center of Fort Worth. So many of our opportunities are on the outskirts of town, and that's great to have opportunities that people can be able to commute to, but we will create jobs in the center of the city, and that is hugely important. And in this last month, I had a bipartisan resolution with Representative Beth Van Dyne condemning the recent terrorist acts on the Congregation Beth Israel that you saw on the news, where there was a terrorist that went in and attacked individuals there in Colleyville, and also had the opportunity to recently host President Biden here over in Southeast Fort Worth to talk about veterans and some of the issues that our veterans face at the outpatient clinic in Southeast Fort Worth off of Campus Drive, and also did a letter to the Nobel Prize nomination committee to nominate Opal Lee, who helped us get Juneteenth passed for a 2022 Nobel Peace Prize. I know there are lots of other things that we're going to talk about as well, securing money for local community projects that are hugely important also. And while I am very proud of these accomplishments, I want everyone to know that Congress and the Biden and Harris administration remain committed to combating inflation and the rising cost of gasoline due to the ongoing war between Ukraine and Russia. And while we are ensuring our Ukrainian allies needed aid to protect themselves, we are tackling the rising costs that are burdening families head on. And the Biden-Harris administration is doing everything they can to help people. And I'll give you an example of that. The Biden-Harris administration just released 90 million barrels from our strategic petroleum reserve to help lower gas prices. And we are working to lower energy costs by speeding up the transition to alternative energy sources, cleaner energy sources as well. And we are also working to still get Build Back Better passed. I know a lot of people are asking me what's going to happen to Build Back Better. We're still working to get Build Back Better passed so we can lower inflation and lower child care and family care costs. And before we and again, I want to thank everybody for being on. And before we open it up to questions, I want to stress that I'm very proud to serve the community, and glad that we were able to face COVID-19 together. I know now we're in a posture where we don't need our mask as much, and the reason why we're able to do that is because so many of us did get boosted, did get shots in the arms, and we did everything we could to get through this together, and I commend you for that. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to our moderator so we can start answering your questions. But again, I want to thank you for spending part of your evening with me so we can talk about some of the important things that are pressing the country.
Well, thank you so much, Congressman. And yes, before we do get to your live questions, I want to just welcome anyone who may have joined us a little late here on the line. Again, we are inviting you and thousands of others in the 33rd District of Texas to join Congressman Mark Veasey for this very special telephone town hall meeting. Again, if you have a question that you would like to bring live tonight, please feel free to press 0 on your phone keypad. Tonight's topics include, but certainly aren't limited to, inflation, transportation, community funding projects, COVID-19, voting rights, etc. So you can also press 7 tonight to receive important information moving forward via email. So that's 0 to submit a question and 7 for email updates. So we're going to go ahead and take our first caller. We have Pam in Grand Prairie, Texas, live with us on the line here. Pam, welcome to the call. Please go ahead with your question.
Thank you. My question for Congressman Veasey, why aren't seniors given food stamps with our Social Security benefits?
If you're eligible to apply for food stamps, you certainly should. They don't necessarily come along with Social Security benefits, but if you meet the criteria to apply for food stamps, you certainly should. Food stamps, also now commonly known as SNAP. Also, we have a lot of grandparents and even great-grandparents that are raising kids, a lot. I know of many in the schools in my district in both Dallas and Tarrant County. And again, if those grandparents are not getting that assistance that they need for raising those grandbabies, they need to do it because SNAP is hugely important in helping people get the food that they need in order to make ends meet, particularly in the economy that we have now. Thank you very much for your question. I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Pam. And let's go ahead and get our next caller up here. We have next Ralph in Irving. Ralph, you are live with us on the line. Please go ahead.
Hi. You said Ralph. Am I up?
Yep, you're Ralph.
Go ahead, Ralph.
Okay. Yes. My question was, what kind of progress is the commission making towards finding Donald Trump guilty of insurrection against the government?
Well, the commission is not going to find anyone guilty. What we're trying to do is present facts to the American public. It's up to the Attorney General's office on whether or not someone is going to ultimately, be indicted for any sort of misdeeds or laws that were broken. What the commission is trying to do is establish exactly what happened on January the 6th. And we have a lot of people, I know them, it's not that big of a deal. I've had people come up to me and say, trying to handcuff Mike Pence with zip ties, that's not that big of a deal. What happened the previous summer was like much, much worse. Pipe bombs being found near the Capitol, 2 pipe bombs being placed and found near the Capitol. Nah, not that big of a deal. People were trying to downplay that. And just wanted to move past it because it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing to a lot of people, and I think a lot of the people that are saying those types of things, they they never thought that they would see that type of violence, perhaps from a movement that they actually believed in, and they're saddened by that, and so they're coming up with these excuses. But we're not going to look for excuses. We're looking for facts. And and we need for the American public to find out exactly what happened. We need to be clear, transparent about exactly what led up to that, and it's a bipartisan committee with both Democrats and Republicans, and I am very, happy about that. And we need to just continue until we get a conclusion to this and can present facts to the American people. Thank you for your question.
All right, and moving right along here, Congressman, we have another question coming to you from Jonathan in Dallas. Jonathan, welcome to the call. Please go ahead.
Hi, hello, Congressman. I just want to let you know, thank you so much for your service. In lieu of the recent Russia invasion of the sovereign nation of Ukraine and the response of the Ukrainian leadership to provide the unarmed populace to protect themselves, their loved ones, and their sacred property, how has your mind changed on the notion that bad guys with guns can only be stopped with good guys with guns? Do you support the constitutional idea that citizens have a right to hold and bear arms to protect themselves from domestic and foreign enemies? And lastly, to quote Beto O'Rourke, hell yeah, we're coming for your guns. Do you support such sentiment, or will you try to convince Beto, because I like him very much, on other issues, to reassess his stance on Texas gun ownership? Thank you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I appreciate your question. I mean, I'm a gun owner myself, and I'm not working to take away anybody's guns. I support the Second Amendment, and that, to me, that's all there is to it. I mean, a lot of people that I know that are of both left-leaning and right-leaning political persuasions own guns of all kinds, and I don't know any of them, regardless of how they identify politically, that are going to give up their guns. And so I think that some of that is unfortunately, being exploited to try and divide us. But I mean, I can tell you that the investment that I've made, I'm not going to give up my investment or my rights. And a lot of people that think like me, I don't think they are either. And I know a lot of people that don't think like me, and I don't think they're going to give up their rights either. So, but I do appreciate your question this evening. And certainly we're all have been elected and sworn to uphold all of the laws of the United States of America.
Well, thank you so much, Congressman. And we're going to go ahead and get our next question in here from Maria, who is in Dallas. And she would rather not go live tonight, so I'm going to go ahead and read her question. She's asking, what is Congress doing to help lower costs for North Texans? And again, that's coming from Maria.
What is Congress doing to help lower costs for North Texas? A variety of different things. I mentioned earlier how the president, and with the encouragement of members of Congress like myself, to open up the Strategic Petroleum Reserve to help lower gas prices. I think that there are other things that we can do to help lower gas prices too, and I'm all in favor of those. I also believe that we need to do everything that we can to get people a child tax credit and make it permanent, something that we were trying to do, and Build Back Better. Child care is hugely responsible for so much of people's discretionary income and household income being depleted, and we need to try to help people that need help in that area, because child care has become very, very important. And we're also doing everything we can, again, to pass Build Back Better and some of the provisions in there that will ultimately help put some money back into people's pockets. And so there's a lot that Congress is doing in that area, and we want to continue to work hard in that area, particularly during these times, because as you know, it's tough right now, and people are out there really, really struggling, and we want to help them. Thank you very much for your question.
Absolutely. Thank you again, Jonathan. And let's go ahead and get our next question. That one's from Maria. I'm sorry. Let's go ahead and get this next one in from TJ. And if you want to get your question in just like Jonathan and Maria did, go ahead and press 0 on your phone keypad. So with that, let's go ahead and get to our next question from TJ in Dallas. TJ, you are now live on the line. Please go ahead.
Thank you. And thank you for this meeting. I am curious as to how we can get language changed in the Medicare statutes to properly include, the example I'm going to give is deep tissue massage work that's really important for folks who are dealing with walking issues. And because of how language is used when the statutes were written, the only thing that a chiropractor can get reimbursed for is adjustments. And this is the medical treatment is not only common, but it's really important to be able to get deep tissue work when people are especially recovering as a COVID long hauler. And I would really appreciate any help that this office could do. I know this is getting into, the high weeds here in a way, but it's impacting. There's so many people not getting proper treatment through Medicare payments. And that's so unfortunate because it really is a huge part of rehabilitation.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I don't know that much specifically about deep tissue massages for people that are struggling with certain ailments and then being, covered. But I do know that people that do receive certain types of therapies like that they are very beneficial. They're hugely helpful, and we certainly want to make sure that people are getting the best help they can so they can rehabilitate themselves, convalesce themselves properly, so they can get back to work, or whether if they're not trying to get back to work, if they're retired, just so they can live as normal of a life as possible. So I appreciate you bringing that to my attention, and we are more than happy to look into that for you. That's the first time I've been asked that type of question specifically as it relates to deep tissue type massages for therapy for people that are in pain or hurting. But certainly appreciate that, and glad that you brought it to my knowledge. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, TJ. And let's go ahead and get on to our next caller here. I'd like to welcome Janice in Fort Worth. Janice, you're live. Go ahead with your question.
Hello. Yes, my question is, my aunt is a senior citizen, and she got to vote by mail. And I told her not to, but she went on and voted by mail, and they told her vote didn't count. So I took her personally down to the office that they told us to go to for her to do her ballot. We did that, and she got a letter this week and said her ballot was thrown out again. So what do we need to do so she'll be able to vote in the primary?
Yeah, she may consider vote in the runoffs. We do have some runoff elections that are coming up, but I do need for you to do me a favor, and it's important for everybody that's on this call to hear this. If that has happened to you, because voting is supposed to be easy, and if that has happened to you, we need to know. So please call my office at 817-920-9086 so we can get the details of that and we can pass it along to the proper authorities. Republicans swore up and down that this would not happen. They literally swore up and down that this would not happen, and people that are hardworking Americans, hardworking Texans, hardworking taxpayers, like your relative, that they would not be affected by this, that it was easy, that everybody could comply, and no one was going to be disenfranchised, and all of a sudden we're getting all these reports of people that are getting their ballots discarded. The Republicans need to admit that they made a mistake, and they need to call a special session and immediately rescind this law. They've created more problems, and this is the type of thing that when I was growing up here in North Texas, you hear conservatives always complain about how government getting involved when they don't need to and making things worse. Well, what's worse? Give me a better example of how to make things worse than having people's ballots needlessly discarded. That's just about as ridiculous and unneedy of a law as it gets. It was dumb to ever pass anything like that, and people just need to sometimes admit that they're wrong. Just look in the mirror and say, hey, we were wrong. These people that are getting their ballots discarded, they shouldn't have had them discarded. We made a mistake. Republicans need to do that, and we need to get it repealed. There are too many stories like yours, and please call my office at 817-920-9086 so we can get your relatives' information. And anyone else that's had that happen to, where you received that letter, let us know because we need you to start building a case. This is exactly what they used to do in the 60s. They would just look for little frivolous reasons. Some guy that was sitting at the voting clerk booth in some place like Selma, Alabama, or some place like Smith County, East Texas. Oh, no, that's not the right paperwork that you need in order to register to vote. Oh, no, that's not what that's not right. No, that's not how many bubbles in a bar of soap. It's literally the same thing, and it's just trying to make it harder for people to vote. It's intentional, and it's wrong. Thank you for calling in. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you again, Janice. I do just want to give another reminder that if you would like to bring your question live tonight to ask the representative, go ahead and press 0 on your phone keypad. You'll speak with an operator who will assist you in getting your question in line. Also, if you haven't done so already, you can still press 7 to provide an operator with your email address to receive updates moving forward from the Congressman's office. So again, that's 0 for questions, 7 for email updates. So with that, we're going to go ahead and get right to our next question here from Frank in Arlington. Frank, you are live on the line with us. Please go ahead with your question for the Congressman.
Yes, Congressman. Why aren't the Democrats doing a better job for border security?
Hello?
And there's no way to stop it.
Wait, Frank.
Why don't they put a fence up there?
Frank, I lost you there for a second. Can you start over? I want to be sure I'm hearing everything you're saying.
Okay, why aren't the Democrats doing a better job on border security? We have a problem with fentanyl abuse in the United States, and in South Texas we had 15,000 people come across the border at one location, and then the people who were manning the border stations down there were criticized by Mr. Mike Yorkus because they were abusing the people coming across. They need to put a fence up across there, and then when they do come across, the federal government drops their care off to the states, and they get out of the picture altogether. The Democrats need to do a better job on closing the border off at locations where there's a problem in Texas and the United States.
Frank, I appreciate your comments, and let me tell you something. The Democrats are actually doing a better job when it comes to proposing ideas on how to secure the border. What you really don't want is, again, I talked earlier about how Republicans have passed this and making it harder for people to vote by mail, just ridiculously and needlessly, just frivolous government bill passing that actually made voting in Texas harder, which is one of the reasons why I led a letter to the DOJ, because we don't want to make things harder, and we certainly don't want to waste people's money. And the same thing with any sort of wall or fence. Everybody hates a wall or fence. The ranchers down there that are very conservative, those large ranch owners down there that own all that property, these guys are conservative guys. They don't want it. It cuts off their access to irrigation. It makes it harder for them to tend to their crops, which feed all of us. They don't want any sort of border wall. The other reason why you don't want to waste money on something like that is that people will just find a way around it or under it. It's kind of a joke, to be quite honest. It's a waste of money. I know that for some people it's very symbolic, and it's become sort of a line in the sand for some people politically. But when it comes to spending our taxpayers' dollars, your hard earned taxpayers' dollars that were sent to the government, and that we have a fiduciary responsibility when it comes to tending to it and appropriating it properly. You don't want a big old wall that's just there to say, hey, I got a big old wall built, and it's not doing anything. You can use much smarter technologies. There are things that you can do, scanning equipment that we need to get to the proper government authorities, to our hard-working men and women that work in customs and work in Border Patrol, that we need to get them so it will allow them to properly defend the border. But spending a bunch of money on a wall is really just a joke. And then I'll also tell you, people see what's happening in the Ukraine. People can see what's happening in the Ukraine. It's become a war-torn country, and literally you have over 2 million people now that have left, and maybe even more than that. I'm not sure what the last county is, that have left the Ukraine and fled into neighboring countries. I think over 1 million people in Poland almost overnight. And the reason why that's happening is because conditions in those countries are no longer safe. And when anyone, it doesn't matter if it's to our southern border, it doesn't matter if it's on the continent of Africa, on the continent of Asia, and now in Europe, when people feel like they cannot be safe, have their kids live in safety, not have to fear death or famine, people around the world will always be on the run or will always move. It goes all the way back to biblical times. If people open up their Bibles, they'll see it in there. When people feel like they are in some sort of peril or danger, or especially their children are in peril or danger, they will leave. So we need to do, really, I think, what Bill Clinton did back when he was president, is that he made Colombia a lot safer place than it is now. People remember the days of the Medellin cartel and the Cali cartel. People remember those days and how dangerous Colombia was. Now, millions of Americans vacation in Colombia because it's a much safer place, and it's made that part of the Southern Hemisphere a much less dangerous situation for the people that live there. We need to try to work on stabilizing the situation in places like Honduras, Guatemala, El Salvador, different places like that. The same way how Mexico has stabilized their situation and their economy much better now, to where there's actually a reverse flow of people. We have more people leaving America and going to Mexico now than people coming from Mexico to America. The last visit that I've made, when I was visiting the hardworking men and women that work in Border Patrol, when I was there last time, there was only one person of Mexican descent out of the people that were there being detained. Most people there were from Central America, one of those countries that I just named. Very, very few people from Mexico at all. Only one person that I met, because the situation there has improved. We need to make similar improvements, and hopefully, let's pray for the people in Ukraine. Hopefully they too can also see some improvements in their country and it not be war-torn, if we can get Putin out of there so they can return to their homes. People only leave their homes like that and make a very dangerous – people don't realize how dangerous the trek is from Central America to Texas. The people that are sexually assaulted, robbed, beaten on their journey here. It's not something that people just want to do for fun. They're doing it because they are trying to live a better life, and we need to try to help stabilize the situation in those countries because we want more stability to the south of us. Thank you for your question.
Absolutely. Thanks, Frank, so much. Happy to have you. Let's go ahead and get our next caller in here, Congressman. This one's coming to us from Janelle in Fort Worth. Janelle, you are now live on the line. Please go ahead.
Well, thank you for your service and representing Texas. My question is about education. I've been in education for 25 years, getting ready to retire, and wondered if there was anything that, Congress is talking about improving our educational system at all?
That Congress is talking about improving education. Obviously, we want to be able to work closely with our local stakeholders. We are very much engaged and listening to local school administrators, superintendents, on how we can be helpful. I mean, we want the federal government to help in our local schools as much as possible, and we also want the input of our educators. I think that one of the things that I learned from when I was in the state legislature is that too much oversight from Austin, was never really that good for a lot of our local schools. And so, we want to be a partner, work with our school districts on things like workforce readiness, on issues like making sure that our young people can be successful in the areas of standardized testing, and just giving teachers the tools that they need in order to make sure that these young people are successful. We tried to support our local school districts during the pandemic by making sure that we appropriated additional funds, that we did everything that we could to keep teachers safe by giving school districts money so they could invest in personal protective equipment, and that's how the federal government can really be the most helpful when it comes to our public schools and public education, is by looking for ways how we can support them. And so we want to do from that. We want to hear from educators. So please, if you have ideas, let us know what it is that we can do to help make your job better as a public school teacher.
Well, thank you so much, Congressman, and thank you, Janelle, for that question. I do want to give just a last reminder here and encourage folks who haven't done so already to press 7 to provide an operator with your email address to receive any future updates moving forward from the Congressman's office. So I see we have some takers already taking advantage of this option here. So again, go ahead and press 7 right now to sign up. So with that, let's get to our next question here. This one comes from Stanley in Arlington, and he asked me to read his question. He's asking, how will the $13 million in funding that you secured for North Texas benefit communities in our district?
I'm sorry, would you repeat that question again? It kind of went out there for a second. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no worries. Stanley in Arlington is asking, how will the $13 million in funding that you secured for North Texas benefit communities in our district?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Let me go through a few of those, Stanley. I appreciate your question. So with the $13 million in the omnibus bill that was just signed into law, I was able to secure $13 million in local project funding, and even more for critical programs in North Texas. And so let me go over some of those with you. One, we got literally for DFW Airport, $5 million for new snow and ice removal equipment for the airport. Also did close to $3 million for the revitalization of the East Side YMCA Community Center, which I'll get back to in just a second. $3 million on the north side of Fort Worth, our historic north side at 1012 North Main Street. Close to $500,000 for the city of Everman and a youth revitalization program that they have. Close to $1 million for DART and their smart bus technology. $100,000 for volunteer income tax assistance, and $900,000 for Children's Healthcare System of Dallas, and another $850,000 for Children's Health Systems of Dallas for facilities and equipment. And again, that $800,000 I mentioned a second ago was for Children's Health Services. Let me go back to the YMCA. For many of you that live in the Fort Worth part of the district, you're familiar with that YMCA that is there off of Sandy Lane, and the YMCA was going to close that facility down, which would have left young people without access to a lot of the services they provide, whether it's sports or after-school programs and many other things. a lot of our young people, and swimming in the Black and Latino community, and the ability to swim proficiently is very low compared to other communities. And they do swim lessons at that YMCA. My son took swim lessons at that YMCA. That was going to close, and we got them that money, and they'll be able to revitalize that YMCA because of the money that I put in for them. And so that's hugely important. We also got $5.7 billion for community health care centers. And as you know, we have several community health care centers in Dallas, federally qualified health care centers. We have several in Fort Worth in my district. And so that money is going to be very helpful to them. For a lot of our young people that want to go to college, we were able to get $1 billion for the federal TRIO program, and we'll see millions of that come back to North Texas. And then also money for Head Start. That, again, a lot of that money that we got for Head Start, that $11 billion, we'll see big portions of that here in the North Texas area. So we're busy. We are working. There's, I don't think that anyone has been out as much as we had been in the past because of COVID-19. We are starting to do more events out in person again, like the rest of the world is safely starting to move around. But even though we haven't been out as much and the world hasn't been out as much, we're still working very, very hard, securing these dollars and being safe at the same time as we travel back and forth from D.C. and move around the Capitol. But work is still getting done, and I'm very proud of all of this money that's going to directly benefit North Texas that I was able to secure.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Congressman, for that information, and great question there from Stanley. Let's go ahead and get our next caller up here. I'd like to go ahead and welcome Kathleen in Arlington. Kathleen, you are live with us on the line. Please go ahead with your question for the Congressman.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for your service. I have a question in regard to electric vehicles.
Yes.
I would really be interested in some information in regard to the cost of the vehicle, what percentage of the population could actually afford them, what the insurance costs are, what it would cost to install a power station in your home, how long it would take to charge a vehicle if it has a 300-mile distance before it has to be charged again, what the cost associated with it. My husband is a 35-year master auto technician, and he has had no training on the electric vehicles. Ford has actually invested $93 million into training their technicians, and there's a problem with the LG Solutions batteries. They're catching on fire, and Chevy has had to do a major recall on the Chevy Bolts, B-O-L-T-S. And LG Solutions has built a number of faulty batteries, and they're building plants in the United States. And finally, what do we do if we lose electric power? How do we charge our vehicle?
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, great questions. I can answer some of those. And remember, in the initial stages of any sort of newer product that comes out, for the public, there's going to be some issues. Remember, this is not the first electric vehicle. There was an electric vehicle that was built over 100 years ago, and someone was actually, electrocuted, and the technology just gets better and better each time. And that's the same thing that's happening with these electric vehicles. The same thing that happened with our cars. Remember, with the internal combustible engine vehicles that 99% of us in this country own, the traditional, standard gas vehicle. Remember, they weren't always as safe. Remember, the glass in cars. People used to die because when they would hit the windshield, they would bleed to death because of the way the glass breaks. Now the glass breaks because that technology has been improved. So when there's impact on glass, it doesn't cut you the same way that it used to. Remember the Pinto. It used to be nicknamed the Chariot of Fire because that popular Pinto vehicle, that people that are old enough to remember it, you used to hit it and it would catch on fire. And so now that, they've made improvements to side impacts to vehicles. Airbags have been deployed in the vehicles. Tires are safer. And you're going to continue to see these same sort of improvements when it comes to electric vehicles. And as more and more people get them, things like getting charging stations put inside of your house will be more affordable. And also, as we get more charging stations, being able to supercharge your vehicle, which will be a little more expensive than a traditional charge, that can take 45 minutes. I think that was one of your questions. It'll be able to charge those vehicles a lot faster. So as the technology improves, things are going to get better. I think one of the biggest challenges for the United States is going to be, can we start to source our own batteries so we're not dependent on the Chinese getting us the components that we need from someplace like the Congo, and having us be dependent on them in order to get these vehicles. And so I think that's a huge challenge for us. It's not going to be easy, and we need to figure out how we're going to face it. So, and how we're going to rise up to it. So I really do appreciate your question. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks again, Kathleen, for joining the conversation here tonight. Let's go ahead and get to our next caller here. I'd like to welcome Mario in Fort Worth. Mario, welcome to the call. Please go ahead.
Hey, Mark. Thank you so much for hosting this informative town hall meeting. Appreciate you taking the time. Here's one. I'm driving in an electric vehicle right now, and I had been watching very closely to see as the Build Back Better legislation because of Joe Manchin and Sinema refusing to allow the Build Back Better to be considered and voted on with a simple majority vote in the United States Senate. And as a result, they were not able to pass that legislation. A good part of that legislation included funding for the basic infrastructure of charging stations all over the country along highways, and also had funding to help subsidize the cost of these vehicles. I believe it was going to be $7,500 for an electric vehicle and up to $10,000 if it was a union-made vehicle made in the United States. And all this legislation was stopped by two senators who refused to allow a majority vote on this important legislation that would help build the infrastructure so that we can take a running leap out of the 1990s and try to catch up to Germany and China with this technology with electric vehicles. I would just like to know from you, Mark, what can we do to try to break through some of the legislative impasse that is holding up needed legislation that's going to make a difference to bring down prices, to make owning electric vehicles and operating electric vehicles more affordable and more practical for average Americans? What can we do? Is it just writing a letter and advocating, short of voting, to the extent that we're able to vote anymore with the changes to the laws that they have rammed through in states like Texas? What can we do to advocate for this important legislation that's going to make a big difference in average people's lives and help us to have that new generation of technology with these incredible electric vehicles that are available, but they may be a little too expensive at this time?
Yeah, no, absolutely, Mario. Thank you for your question. And one thing that I do want to note is that in the infrastructure bill that has already passed, it did provide for $7.5 billion in federal grants so we can build that network of electric vehicle charging stations. And so, making investments like that are important. And, of course, making sure that we continue to provide for tax credits for people so they can afford these vehicles. And, again, as these things start to scale, as these charging stations inside of people's homes start to scale, as the vehicles themselves start to scale, it's not as difficult in getting the rare earths that are needed from places like China, and they're more plentiful, and the technology improves. I mean, look at what some of these electric car companies are doing now. They're building vehicles that need less and less cobalt to help hold the charge. That's going to make us a lot less beholden to countries like China. We certainly don't want to replace the Saudis with China as they're trying to compete with us and turn us into a continental power. And so I think if we continue to make these investments, that we certainly can have an amazing electric vehicle fleet these vehicles can be more affordable, charging can be easy, and it can all be done here in the United States with our energy and sovereignty in place as we compete with China to continue to dominate. We want Detroit to dominate this space the same way how they dominated the internal combustible engine space for so long. Thank you for your question. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, great question, Mario. And I'm going to go ahead and read this next question here from Lopez, who is listening in on our Spanish simulcast. Lopez is asking, what can you do for disabled people? How can you help? And it looks like he would like you to make this one of your causes. What are your thoughts here, Congressman?
Yeah, we obviously need to continue to do everything that we can to help our disabled community. We've made lots of strides, and since just a generation ago, when it comes to helping people that are disabled, and we need to continue to do that. Whether it is people that are having hearing issues, whether it's sight, whether it's mobility issues, looking for ways that we can continue to make sure that everyone is included and that everyone has access and can be able to prosper and be happy and live their lives, I think is very important. And I know that is something that all members of Congress take seriously. We have 2 members of Congress that are paraplegics on both sides of the aisle, Republican and Democrat, and accommodations have been made in the House of Representatives for those individuals. And we need to do everything that we can to help. We need to help our small businesses to make sure that they have the monies that they need so they can also, particularly when it's a lower income, smaller business and they're struggling, that they can make the improvements that they need to make sure that their facilities are handicap accessible. It's just little things like that we need to do more of to make sure that people in the disabled community, regardless of what may be making their life more difficult, in order to improve it so they can participate fully in society like everyone else.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Congressman. And we're going to go ahead and pivot here real quick to this polling question. So we would like to know, what is the most important issue you think Congress and Biden-Harris administration should prioritize? So go ahead and just vote in this poll by using your phone keypad. You can press 1 for curbing inflation. Press 2 for protecting the right to vote. Press 3 for fighting against Russian aggression. You can press 4 for ending the COVID-19 pandemic, or press 5 for providing a pathway to citizenship for dreamers. So again, what is the most important issue you think that Congress and Biden-Harris administration should prioritize? So pressing 1 on your phone keypad for curbing inflation. Press 2 for protecting the right to vote. You can press 3 for fighting against Russian aggression. Press 4 for ending the COVID-19 pandemic, or press 5 for providing a pathway to citizenship for dreamers. So want to just say thank you everyone for your feedback here. It does look like we have officially reached our allotted time tonight. Thank you so much, Representative Veasey, and everyone in our listening audience for your participation and joining this live telephone town hall tonight. We did answer as many of your questions as we could. However, if your question was not answered, we do encourage you to stay on until the very end of this call to leave us a voicemail message. So simply follow the prompts there, leave us your name and your best contact information so that we have a fighting chance of reaching back out to you. You may also grab more information after tonight's call by visiting veasey.house.gov or call the Congressman's District Office at 817-920-9086. So again, we do sincerely appreciate and value your time. So with that, I'll hand it back over to your Congressman to bring us to the finish line.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And again, even though it's been COVID-19 and all of our lives have changed, we are still busy at work. I just want to emphasize to you again the $13 million that we received to help the YMCA, to help DART, Dallas Area Rapid Transit, to help Dallas Children's Health System, the close to $3 million for the East Side YMCA, the $400 million to help complete the flood control project in Fort Worth. We were literally going to have no water under those 3 bridges that were built. But I helped get that money and worked with President Biden to make sure that $400 million came to Fort Worth. And it's things like that we can continue to work on and continue to improve together that we need to continue to emphasize. I want to let you know that if you need help, again, our offices are open, 817-920-9086, 817-741-1387 in Dallas. We want you to call if you have any issues with Social Security, immigration, SNAP, anything that is that deals with the federal government. Call us if you're having issues with around the federal government. We have great caseworkers. Both offices in Fort Worth and in Dallas have workers that speak Espanol, and we want to be a resource for you if you're having trouble cutting through the red tape and cutting through the bureaucracy that sometimes happens within our federal government. We want to continue to hear from you on issues around Build Back Better, on issues around inflation and how to improve that, and on issues around the Ukraine as we pray for everyone that is living in that war-torn part of the world and all areas where people feel like they have to move their families in order to just survive. Let's pray for all of those people. I, again, appreciate you spending a part of your evening with me. Please visit my website at veasey.house.gov to find out about upcoming events and other upcoming meetings that we may have. But again, I just appreciate you spending part of your evening with me. So with that, I will say good night, buenas noches, and please always call the office if we can be of assistance. Thank you.